first story, behind mansion walls, a marriage ripped apart by a single bullet.
He loses his wife, his unborn baby.
The scandalous truth will shock everyone.
Just the absolute brutality of it, the absolute manipulation.
And later,
This was a life that she probably could have never even dreamed of.
the grim tale of Beauty and the Wild Boar.
It had everything. It had sex. It had drugs. It had money. It had infidelity.
I'm Christopher Mason. When the rich and powerful marry, the social pages swoon, and the less fortunate look on with envy. But behind mansion walls, seemingly ideal marriages can be marred by deception. True love turns toxic when your spouse harbors dark secrets.
First responders to a 911 call in suburban Detroit walk into a slaughterhouse.
Blood on the walls, blood on the floor. You know, just a gruesome, gruesome scene.
She's naked from the waist down, lying in a puddle of her own blood.
Obviously, something horrible had happened.
A beautiful young woman lies dead, a gun by her side. Is it an accident, a suicide, or something else?
This was a huge story. If you were coming up with some soap opera plot for a made-for-TV movie, this would be it.
If you rise to the top of the American legal system, you've got it made. A job for life, a supreme salary, political clout, and you hold other people's lives in the palm of your hand. Hazel Park attorney Mick Fletcher is already conquering the courtrooms of Michigan.
Well, Mick was very attractive, very charming.
Seemed like a nice guy and was going to go places.
In the summer of 1999, 31-year-old Mick, his popular pretty wife Leanne, and her family have plenty to celebrate.
She was a nail technician, had a beautiful young daughter, and had just gotten the news that she was pregnant again.
I'm pregnant.
All Leanne really wanted to do was raise a family and have children.
I know, it's so exciting.
Mick and Leanne met at a college party 9 years before.
Met at a Halloween costume party, and he was dressed as the devil and came up, and they were pretty much an item continually from then on.
You are gonna have a little brother or a sister.
In the early days of their marriage, Leanne worked long hours to pay Mick's way through law school. Now Mick's legal career has taken off.
There was so much possibility. Lawyer, beautiful wife, a daughter.
But his career comes at a price. Mick's always on call for the next case.
His ambitions seemed to be loftier.
Everything okay? Oh, yes, just work. Never stops.
To become more prominent in the community, build his practice, and ultimately he thought of becoming a judge in the local area.
Before he can become a judge, Mick has to get down and dirty with Detroit's lowlife, handling the tough drug cases from the city's underworld. And that has its dangers.
He was concerned about defendants that he was representing in that type of criminal element, and as a result that he believed that he needed to get a weapon for purposes of self-defense.
So Mick buys a handgun. He wants his pregnant wife to learn how to protect herself. But Leanne struggles with the powerful .45 caliber weapon.
I'm no good at this.
She hated guns and never wanted to have anything to do with guns.
You can do this.
On the morning of August 16th, 1999, Mick insists that Leanne get comfortable with the pistol.
like it, Annie Oakley, all right?
She does it to please her husband.
Okay.
They're not a gun family, and Leanne was not a gun person.
Yeah.
After the gun range, Mick presents his wife with a thank you card. The romantic gesture sparks more fireworks that afternoon in the marital bed.
After the gun range, they decide that they're gonna have a quickie before he goes back to work.
He then goes into the bathroom to wash his hands.
Here's this ferociously loud sound of the Smith & Wesson going off inside their tiny bedroom.
Runs back into the room, and there's Leanne on the floor, laying a puddle of blood. There's blood everywhere, and she has a bullet hole in her right ear from a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon.
Distraught and panic-stricken, Mick calls 911.
My wife! She just shot herself in the head.
It looks like a terrible accident. Mick thinks his wife might have been trying to reload his new Smith & Wesson.
The gun had a bullet in the chamber and had accidentally gone off and struck Leanne in the head.
This was a Smith & Wesson large bore, blood everywhere, gruesome wound, blood on the walls, blood on the floor, you know, just a gruesome, gruesome scene.
A tragic mistake at the end of a blissful day for Mick and Leanne. Or is it something more?
It's going to be the forensic evidence that's going to tell you what happened in that room, because the person that could tell you is dead.
Police can't rule out the possibility that Leanne took her own life. And as they search the bedroom, they find a clue.
We see a card that he had given her that says, "I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you."
It seems Leanne had much to live for. A high-flying husband and another baby on the way.
So this has been extremely uncommon in this situation, that she would have shot herself. And that's why you got to take a real hard look at it. They almost want to believe that it was some type of an accidental type of shooting.
But there's a dark secret lurking in the closet.
We get all the love notes and we get all the emails.
Either it was a horrible, horrible accident, or it was a horrible murder.
A beautiful young woman helping her husband scale the ladder of justice. A promising attorney who writes a tender love note to his wife. What could possibly spoil the Fletchers' fine romance? Well, it turns out that Mick has been penning a lot of passionate prose. Trouble is, none of it is addressed to Leanne.
A search of Mick Fletcher's closet uncovers a hidden file of love letters. They reveal the grieving husband was leading a double life.
We get the folder, and then we get all the love notes, and we get all the emails after we get the search warrants for the computer, completely showing a very strong, intimate relationship between him and another person.
In amongst the letters are photos of the other woman. And investigators recognize her. She's a high-profile district court judge. Mick and the judge met 3 years ago
The court will come to order.
when he was a lowly law
Go on,
clerk.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mick was suddenly in a different milieu. There were these attractive women who were ready and available, and he took advantage of that.
I'd like to approach the bench if I may. Enjoy your attention to the documents.
The glamorous judge comes from a fine pedigree. Her father was a chief judge, and she is set to follow in his footsteps.
A very young, beautiful, brilliant judge that everyone thought was going to go someplace really special.
Including Mick Fletcher's arms. A judge conducting a secret affair with one of the lawyers in her court? It's a scandal that could tarnish the reputation of this rising star. But this is more than pure passion. Mick Fletcher is also lusting after power and money.
He was fortunate that he got hooked up with a judge that is now giving him appointed cases.
He was picking up a lot of cases and making a lot of money because he was getting all of the judge's indigent cases.
Please pay particular attention to the dates and signatures, Your Honor.
Duly noted, Mr. Fletcher.
Mick was getting large sums of cases, $10,000, $12,000, $20,000 worth of cases.
If the dates and signatures
Mick wanted to use that relationship to move his career forward.
Detectives learn that after celebrating Leanne's pregnancy the night before she died, Mick Fletcher rendezvoused with his powerful mistress.
He said he had to leave there and go to work. Well, actually, he went over to spend the night with a judge. He was telling her that he was in love with her, and he was going to be leaving Leanne, that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with the judge. There's no question, based upon the computers, the emails, and cards that we obtained pursuant to the search warrants.
The attorney is also making promises to the judge he just can't keep.
He had indicated to her that he was not in any manner having any type of sexual or intimate relations with his wife, Leanne.
But Mick's been playing at home and away. And in just a few months' time, his secret will be out in the open.
Now we find out that Leanne's pregnant.
Did this high-profile judge, sworn to uphold the law to rich and poor alike, want her lover's wife out of the way?
She was looked at very seriously, was investigated.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers.
Leanne must have suspected something. Her family tells cops she'd walked out on Mick several times. They'd even talked about divorce.
I think that Leanne had beliefs that he was being unfaithful. I believe her sisters had beliefs that he was being unfaithful.
Leanne's divorce lawyer, Gerald Gordonier, says Mick was trying to work through their issues.
Did he want to try to make the marriage work, or was he pushing forward with the divorce? I don't think I ever got a clear message from him in that process.
When the autopsy results come in, the murder theory takes hold. The pattern of gunpowder burns on Leanne's face shows the gun was held at least 12 to 18 inches from her head. There's no way she could have shot herself, accidentally or otherwise.
I mean, if you're trying to hold a gun out here, you could even pull the trigger. And again, if a person is going to attempt to self-inflict an injury, why would you hold a gun out this far? That was a very significant piece of evidence, extremely significant. This is not looking like an accidental shooting anymore.
Forensics also shows Leanne was down on her hands and knees when she was shot.
Blood and substance was transferred to a blanket that was on the bed, and would indicate that may have been the position that she was in at the time she was shot.
Police are now on a murder hunt. The two suspects, Leanne's adulterous husband, Mick, and his high-profile lover. But the judge has an alibi.
She had indicated at the time of the shooting she had been at Cedar Point, I believe with her sister. That was thoroughly checked out and it was verified.
All focus turns to Mick Fletcher. Forensic testing shows he has a little something up his sleeve.
They're looking for, in this case, blood spatter, location where the spatter is.
Considering he was trying to revive his dying wife, Mick's shirt has surprisingly little blood on it.
You could look at this shirt and not see the blood, but under a microscope, you would see all the tiny little microscopic spots of blood. And the chemist said this shirt was filled with blood.
And those tiny blood spots have left a telltale pattern.
Blood spatter is an aerosolized form of blood that happens at close range. You shoot somebody at close range, this fine mist of blood flies out.
We found some of the high-velocity blood spatter on his shirt cuff.
The blood-spattered shirt is damning evidence. It places Mick Fletcher in the same room as his wife when she was shot. Detectives are now convinced this was no accident. It was no suicide. It was pure, cold-blooded murder.
I'm pregnant.
He pretended to be happy about his new baby, but this was going to really screw up his future life with the judge. And he needed to make that go away. And the way you make it go away is to kill your wife.
Mick Fletcher is charged with murder. He still says it was all a tragic accident. On the day of Leanne's funeral, Mick's in custody, but he calls the funeral to a halt, demanding a second autopsy, to the horror of her grieving parents.
I think extremely upsetting for the family. I believe we objected to it.
The autopsy is conducted by a veteran of the O.J. Simpson trials. He makes a stunning finding that turns the case on its head. Leanne could have died by her own hand. Successful Detroit attorney Mick Fletcher has been accused of killing his pregnant wife, Leanne. But a second autopsy, carried out at Mick's request, shows Leanne could have shot herself. Is it enough to clear his name? Almost a year after the shooting, Mick Fletcher goes on trial for first-degree murder. He continues to claim it was all a horrible accident.
I think he thought he was smarter than the police.
The prosecution disputes the fresh autopsy results. They're convinced this charming lawyer is a cold-hearted killer.
I think he's very arrogant, extremely arrogant. I think he thought he was high and mighty. I think he believed he was better than everybody else.
The motive? Mick didn't want to divorce his wife and divvy up the assets. But he refused to give up the glamorous judge, furthering his career.
Well, I mean, obviously you can't marry the judge if you're married to Leanne.
Blinded by his own ambition, Mick sees Leanne as the one person standing in his way.
So I think he sees himself as highly upward mobile, and I think he sees Leanne almost as a liability.
His dramatic trial becomes a lurid tale of sex, power, and betrayal, splashed in headlines across the nation. Tenacious prosecutor Greg Townsend is seeking justice for a defenseless woman and her unborn child.
I've tried probably over 130 murder trials, homicide cases in my life, and there are several that just really stick out. This is one of them. Just the absolute brutality of it, the absolute manipulation.
The prosecutor believes Mick manipulated the evidence from start to finish. This is no heat-of-the-moment crime. It's a calculated murder by a man who knows the law all too well.
He had never before ever asked her to go to the gun range.
You can do this, come on.
All of a sudden, on this day, he asked her to go to the gun range. And just, coincidentally, it's the same day she gets shot.
No.
One, only two reasons. One is to either get her fingerprints on the gun or an attempt to have some type of soot or residue left from firing the weapon on her hands. So when the autopsy is conducted, they would find evidence that she would have handled the weapon.
That's more like it. Off a few more.
Okay.
And arguably would have shot herself.
The prosecution says what happens next is almost too terrible to believe. Less than a day after celebrating her pregnancy, Mick Fletcher makes love to his wife, then executes her.
At the point, we believed that he had just recently had sexual relations with her and then shot her in the head.
Shut up!
After carefully placing the gun next to her right hand, he makes the frantic 911 call.
My wife just shot herself in the head.
Then waits calmly on the sidewalk.
When the police arrived, Mick was outside on the front porch with the phone and I believe smoking a cigarette.
Take a very close look at the 911 call he made. You listen to it, and you listen carefully to it. He's putting his entire defense on the 911 call.
We just got back from the firing range. That's why we had the gun out. Okay.
As an attorney, Mick knows his call will be recorded and replayed in court. So he overplays the part of distraught husband.
When you start analyzing all that, it just, his whole story starts falling apart completely.
Is it all an act? Or is Mick Fletcher indeed a grieving man? The jury takes 4 days to decide. They find Mick Fletcher guilty of second-degree murder because they can't believe this brutal act could be premeditated. At his sentencing, Mick's charm with female judges is all dried up. The presiding judge declares it the most heartless and cold-blooded crime she's ever seen.
The judge, interestingly enough, threw the book at him, sentenced him to life.
Mick's lover is cleared of any involvement in Leanne's murder. But the judge is suspended from the bench for a year for misleading the police investigation. With 2 lives lost and 2 more in tatters, some still question Mick Fletcher's guilt.
Either Mick Fletcher is a homicidal maniac, just, beyond evil.
Shut up!
Or he's the unluckiest guy on earth. He loses his wife, his unborn baby, his freedom, his career, loses the judge, and loses his daughter.
He was a manipulator. He manipulated and used Leanne. He manipulated and used the judge. And he did whatever he had to benefit himself. And he's exactly where he belongs.
Mick Fletcher thought he could have it all. Now he has nothing but the confines of a Michigan prison cell. Keeping secrets from your spouse is always a gamble, even more so when it's a deadly game of Russian roulette.
On a cool spring afternoon at a bleak Queens inlet, teenagers stumble on a grisly package.
Terrible, terrible, gruesome sight.
A body, hog-tied and stuffed into a cardboard barrel.
They actually called it a dead clown at the time because of the vibrant colors, the large body.
This is no carnival character. He's a multimillionaire. And he's a long way from home.
Police probably would have thought, okay, this is a straight-out mob hit.
Russia in the early 90s is a place of extreme poverty and extreme wealth. Oil magnate Boris Kalijas is one of the lucky ones.
Very well-known in all the restaurants because he was a big spender.
He owned an aviation fuel business, and his net worth was said to be about $3 million.
Boris's friends dubbed the brash tycoon the Wild Boar.
Based on his personality and his physical presence, Boris's nickname was actually the Boar.
This is Elena.
The Wild Boar shares the good life with his gorgeous girlfriend, Elena.
Blonde-haired, thin, attractive. She was a head-turner.
Well, Boris, I'm ready like a man.
When she was just 17, Elena was hired as Boris's maid. She soon became much more.
Boris was married at the time, became enamored with her, and that's how they met. I mean, I think Boris was head over heels in love with Elena.
When Boris leaves his wife and marries Elena, the Russian peasant girl gladly goes from rags to riches.
She was very poor at the time.
Was basically on her own on the streets and kind of living by her wits day to day.
She was not a good maid, but she had other uses.
I mean, this was a match for her, a match made in heaven.
This was a life that she probably could have never even dreamed of.
But there's a dark cloud hanging over their new life together.
Early 90s in Russia were quite scary to do business, especially in fuel or anything connected to oil.
Russian mobsters are targeting Boris's colleagues.
In his side of business is very dangerous. People got shot right in front of him, and people tried to kill him.
The Wild Boar's greatest fear? His family will be next.
He felt his children and Elena would be better off and safer here in America.
So in 1992, the Kalijas and their two young children moved to the land of the free. Buying into the most exclusive neighborhood on Staten Island.
They lived in a $1 million mansion on Toad Hill here in Staten Island.
It was a beautiful home on Toad Hill, the wealthiest part of Staten Island. They lived an extremely comfortable lifestyle. It is where you'll see doctors, attorneys, stockbrokers. It is what the local Staten Islanders aspire to live on Toad Hill. They not only settled in this prestigious part of Staten Island, the most prestigious part of the borough, but then enrolled their children in one of the most prestigious schools in the borough.
Boris pays cash for the 9,000 square foot mansion.
Look what I got for you guys.
There was no mortgage on it. It was purchased in cash. Boris and Elena led a very affluent lifestyle. Money was no object.
Elena embraces the capitalist way of life, using their $1 million joint account as her own personal ATM.
She had the most expensive clothing, the most expensive cars, vehicles, all at her fingertips.
What did you get?
Only this.
All thanks to the husband she affectionately calls her teddy bear.
You want me to be pretty, don't you?
Elena Kalijas loved Boris, and I believe the feeling was mutual. The problem in the marriage was that Boris traveled a lot, left home for long periods of time.
And that's risky business for Boris.
Elena was concerned for Boris's well-being every time he traveled.
It was a quite dangerous time in Moscow.
I've seen it countless times. Brash newcomers who find it tough to infiltrate the upper echelons of New York society. But the Russian beauty and her beast seem to be coping just fine. They have the mansion, fast cars, shopping sprees on Madison Avenue. And in March of 2000, they arrange a luxurious family vacation. Except Boris doesn't make the flight.
It was actually their daughter's birthday, and they were taking a trip to Disney World to celebrate.
Elena is used to her husband's last-minute change of plans.
It wasn't uncommon for Boris to take multiple trips to Russia back and forth for business. So for Boris to suddenly have to pick up and go, it wasn't that out of the ordinary.
So the family travels to Florida without him. When they return a few days later, Boris still hasn't been in touch. Elena contacts their trusted financial advisor, Yuri Sverdlov.
Elena called me, and she told me that he's missing. Quite worried. She couldn't find him anywhere.
The concerned wife goes straight to the Staten Island police.
On about April 2nd, 2000, he was officially reported missing to the NYPD.
Elena says Boris could have returned to Russia on business.
She told them he left the house, took the car, and I haven't seen him since.
Investigators realize the oil tycoon is a tempting target for Russian mobsters.
That was law enforcement's first area of concentration to see if there was some sort of hit that was placed on him.
Boris was never safe, but never was he in more danger than when he traveled back to Russia.
Then, a clue turns up, much closer to home. A week after he's reported missing, Boris's luxury car is found in nearby Brighton Beach.
It was known as a location where the Russian mafia congregated.
Detectives wonder if Boris has been lured to a meeting here. It seems the mobster's tentacles stretch all the way to Staten Island.
She realized that the Russian mafia had a long reach.
Cops still hope the oil magnate will resurface. And almost a month after his disappearance, Boris does.
Boris's body was found in a barrel floating in the water in Howard Beach.
Teenagers are drawn to the bright bedding wrapped around the hog-tied body.
Sad part was they actually called it a dead clown at the time because of the vibrant colors, the large body, bloated, and the condition that it appeared to be.
Medical examiners find a close contact bullet wound from a 9mm pistol behind Boris's right ear.
They knew, based upon the gunshot wound alone, that this was an up-close and personal murder.
On the same day, another dead businessman turns up, handcuffed and executed near where Boris's car was found.
There were other bodies discovered in this area as well.
It looks like the Russian mafia has had a busy week. Then, Staten Island police get an unexpected visit from a young rapper called Messiah Justice.
He was charming, he had good looks, he was young, he was charismatic.
And he has information about Boris's death. What would a streetwise rap artist know about a Russian millionaire and his wife?
He was her lover. He admitted the relationship with her, admitted that he was in the house with her while her husband was away.
A chance meeting in Manhattan brought 26-year-old Messiah into Elena's life.
She was in her car, I think he was in another car, and their eyes met.
I got an understanding that she was a bored housewife.
Upon finding out that she was married to a rich Russian oil tycoon, he put his charm into first gear.
With Boris's frequent trips away, lonely Elena relishes the attention of this younger man.
He was emotionally supportive of her, showered her with attention, which she hadn't been getting from Boris.
And in exchange, Elena showered him with material goods, such as jewelry.
Would like?
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Cash. There's no doubt in my mind that Messiah Justice felt he just hit the jackpot.
The rapper has come to the cops to clear his own name. But investigators discover Messiah's rap sheet is more impressive than his rap skills.
any crime of dishonesty that's in the New York State penal law, he was convicted of.
The convicted felon has a dozen aliases, and his specialty is the con.
This is the Messiah Justice that ingratiated himself to Elena Collegius, the ultimate con man, the ultimate dishonest man.
Dishonest? Maybe. But that doesn't mean this con's a killer. Messiah has no connection with the Russian mafia, but he does have a story to tell.
They didn't have a murder weapon. They didn't have fingerprints. Messiah Justice was the key to the case.
I knew I was getting myself into something that was way over my head.
Oil magnate Boris Collegius has been shot dead. It has all the hallmarks of a Russian mafia hit. But this murder could be far more personal. His wife Elena's lover is ex-con man and rap artist Messiah Justice. And he's about to sing like a bird to the NYPD.
Messiah said that Elena had called him that night in a panic, saying that she'd killed her husband.
Please, Messiah, you have to come and help me.
She was like, I killed him. He was hitting me. I need help. I don't know what to do. I need your help.
But Elena denies everything. She lays the blame squarely back on Messiah.
She claimed she was innocent, that Messiah Justice was the killer.
They were trying to blame each other.
Elena's lawyer claims Boris was a big man, over 250 pounds. So only someone strong could take down the wild boar.
Elena Collegius, this slender woman, 90 pounds soaking wet, certainly did not have or possess that type of physical strength and ability.
Mark Fonte also says a small bruise found on Boris's head raises questions about Messiah's involvement.
Messiah Justice had the strength and the physical capability to direct a blow to the back of Boris Collegius's head, which would have rendered him incapacitated or unconscious.
What would Messiah gain from murdering the millionaire?
Boris was Messiah's cash cow, so they thought, why would he kill his cash cow?
Police decide to search the Tote Hill mansion, and they discover a dark secret. Where else but in the basement?
Police found in Elena's house carpet that had been cut. They find blood in the house.
Cops quiz Elena's former maid. She says the day Boris disappeared, she was told not to clean the house.
She's told that night by Elena to take the next day off, which was completely odd.
On her next cleaning day, Elena's maid finds the cutout carpet in the basement.
She picks up the rug, and there's a huge cutout, the size of a body, in the carpeting.
Disturbed by what she's seen, the maid packs her bags, never to return. When detectives look in Elena's linen chest, they open up Pandora's box.
They learn that there were matching sheets, matching pillowcases to the same sheets that had been wrapped around Boris's body.
Then the autopsy results show this wild boar was more like a pickled pig.
At the time of his death, Boris had vodka and phenobarbital in his system. Frankly, it wouldn't have taken a big, strong person to injure someone like Boris and knock him out, given the physical state Boris was in.
Cops learn Boris had recently found out about his wife's secret life.
Boris had learned that she was seeing Messiah Justice.
Elena hasn't been discreet. Her affair has been very public.
She wasn't concerned at all about parading Messiah in the neighborhoods of the Russian community in Brighton Beach.
Elena would bring Messiah out in public to places that she and Boris frequented socially and knew people. And she held him out as, I'm with this man.
The close-knit Russian community of Brighton Beach takes care of its own. A local jeweler spells it out to Boris.
The jeweler who told him that, look, she was asking for a lot of jewelry and she needed this jewelry to be sold so she can spend money on herself and her boyfriend.
You like?
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Boris also discovers Elena is using their joint account to indulge her lover.
Showered him with gifts, expensive gifts.
She had removed close to $100,000 in cash from January to March.
And I think Boris thought, enough's enough. You've embarrassed me. You've stolen from me. You've humiliated me.
Boris was about to cut Elena off from his millions.
And he threatened her, saying to her she was going to end up on the streets like she was where he found her back in Russia. I think she pretty much figured she had no other way out of this.
Almost 2 years after Boris went missing, his wife Elena goes on trial for second-degree murder, the highest charge possible for this crime in New York. The trial of the glamorous widow plays to a packed courtroom.
You'd have this couple that has all this money, and now you have a wife accused of killing her, her very wealthy husband.
Her lover, Messiah Justice, is the prosecution's star witness.
Messiah gives him the whole thing.
I knew I was getting myself into something that was way over my head.
Messiah tells the police everything he knows from the night in question when Boris was killed.
On March 24th, as they pack for their vacation, Boris and Elena argue violently about the divorce.
No, I won't. No.
I will hurt you.
No.
End it, or I will end this. I will divorce you and I will leave you destitute. You will get nothing.
While the children sleep upstairs,
Elena, where are you?
Elena lures their father down to the basement and shoots him in the back of the head.
What I like to say, her own Russian divorce, her own method of divorce.
After wrapping the body, Elena realizes she can't move the wild boar on her own. So she makes a frantic phone call.
Please, Messiah, you have to come and help me.
Well, I got a call from her, March 24th. She was frantic. She said, oh, you gotta come over, help me.
She rushes him down to the basement, and Boris's body is there already wrapped up in sheets and plastic and tied.
Elena wants Messiah to get rid of the body and Boris's other car.
You gotta get rid of the car because the story she wanted to create was that he left, he got mad, he left in the car.
Instead of helping, the icy blonde takes her kids to a theme park for the weekend.
You get rid of Boris, you get rid of the rug.
The Russian beauty has to cover her tracks when Boris's mother calls to speak to her son.
Elena would consistently cover for Boris's not being there. Oh, Boris just left to go get us some food. Oh, you just missed Boris. He just went out with the kids to go over here. But don't worry, we're having a great time and everything's terrific. And Boris's mother is believing, okay, based on my conversations with Elena, they're down in Florida and they're having a wonderful time.
And she makes up lies, saying Boris is either in the bathroom, or Boris is out to eat, or Boris is at the pool, despite the fact that Boris was in a barrel floating in a small creek at that time.
Messiah buys a cardboard barrel and stuffs the corpse into it. Down in Florida with her children, Elena keeps close tabs on her lover.
she calls Messiah's cell phone over 220 times to check on him.
But she was calling me, asking me, did you give it a call?
It showed who was really controlling all the maneuverings of this whole case, which was Elena.
We took it and just pushed it down in the water.
Elena even tries to buy Messiah's silence.
Elena also knows Messiah has the goods on her to a large degree.
And she promises to buy him this Bentley for $330,000 as a birthday gift.
She then waits another week before reporting Boris missing.
In the end, Elena's ruthlessness really came forward. To murder your children's father while they're sleeping upstairs is something that I think, you know, the jurors just couldn't stomach.
In June 2002, Elena Kaligis is found guilty of second-degree murder.
Elena was sentenced to life imprisonment with the eligibility of parole at 22 years.
And the prosecution's star witness? Seems he hasn't changed his ways.
He was due back in court to be sentenced for the crimes of helping Elena Kaligis dispose of Boris's body. But instead of coming back to court to be sentenced, he absconded.
Messiah stays on the run for 10 years until justice finally catches up with him. He's arrested on an unrelated passport fraud and sent to prison.
That's all he's guilty of, is getting rid of the body and not even doing that very well.
Spinning a web of lies inside a wealthy marriage can be deadly. Elena Kaligis blamed her secret lover for her own murderous act. Michael Fletcher's lust for power saw him sacrifice those closest to him. These spouses were leading double lives until it all crumbled apart when their dark secrets were exposed. Till next time we meet behind mansion walls, I'm Christopher Mason.